Welcome. Discover the shocking stories of 33 circus freaks so controversial they were erased from history. Which one surprises you the most? Kidnapped as children and sold into the freak show circuit, George and Willie Muse were billed as Echo and Eco, the Martian ambassadors. Forced to perform, they traveled the world while their mother searched for them. After years of captivity, she finally found them and won their freedom. Despite their harrowing past, the brothers later returned to the stage, this time on their own terms, becoming wealthy performers. Their story is one of both exploitation and triumph. Stefan Bobrowski's entire body was covered in long, flowing hair due to hypertrichosis, giving him the appearance of a lion. But beneath the wild mane was a gentle, intelligent man who spoke multiple languages. Unlike many freaks, he was treated with respect, even performing in high-class venues. He spent years dazzling crowds across Europe and America before retiring to Germany, where he passed away in obscurity. His story reminds us that the most fascinating people often defy expectations. Horace Ridler was a British aristocrat who transformed himself into a living artwork. Covered head to toe in bold, zebra-striped tattoos, he became a sensation, billed as the Great Omi. His act was simple, standing and staring while audiences marveled. But his dedication to self-transformation made him one of the most unforgettable figures in circus history. Behind the ink was a highly intelligent man who meticulously crafted his own legend, proving that the greatest showmen create their own spectacle. Martin Lorello had a talent that defied nature. He could twist his head 180 degrees, staring directly behind him. Born in Germany, he trained for years to achieve this eerie feat. Claiming his flexible spine allowed him to dislocate vertebrae at will. He became a star with Ringling Brothers and Ripley's Believe It or Not. His act both mesmerizing and unsettling. But despite his fame, he vanished into obscurity, with little known about his later years, just like a ghost fading into the past. Born without legs, Johnny Eck turned his condition into a spectacle of skill. He walked on his hands, performed acrobatics, and even raced horses on foot. His talent landed him a role in the 1932 cult film Freaks, cementing his fame. More than just a sideshow act, he was also a painter, pianist, and magician. Unlike many performers, he retired peacefully, living a quiet life in Baltimore until his death in 1991, forever remembered as a man who proved limitations were only in the mind. Annie Jones was barely a baby when P.T. Barnum whisked her away to be exhibited as the infant Esau due to her thick facial hair. Rather than just being a spectacle, she became one of the most elegant and dignified performers in circus history. She used her fame to fight for the fair treatment of sideshow performers. Despite her success, her life was short. She died of tuberculosis at 37. Her grace and confidence ensured she was remembered not just as a bearded lady, but as a true star. Schlitzys kleiner Wuchs, kindliches Gemüt und weite Augen machten ihn zu einem der geliebtesten Sideshow-Akteure aller Zeiten. Born with microcephaly, he was often billed as the last of the Aztecs or a missing link, though in reality, he was just a man with a love for performing. His role in Freaks, 1932, turned him into a cult icon, his joyful presence unforgettable. Even after freak shows faded, he continued performing until his guardian passed, spending his final years in a care home. Born with genu recurvatum, a condition that caused her knees to bend backward, Ella Harper walked more easily on all fours than upright. This gave her the eerie nickname, the Camel Girl. Though she performed in 1880s circuses, she was one of the few who left on her own terms. After just a few years in the business, she quit, sought an education, and faded into obscurity. Unlike many in the freak show world, she chose a different path, one of quiet dignity. Lavinia Warren wasn't just a tiny performer, she was a celebrity. Standing at 2 feet 8 inches, she married General Tom Thumb in a lavish wedding attended by thousands, including President Lincoln. Unlike many freak show acts, she was treated as high society, living a luxurious life of fame and fortune. Even after Tom Thumb's death, she continued performing, proving that charisma, not just uniqueness, was what made a star in the world of spectacle. Maurice Tillet's massive, deformed features were the result of acromegaly, but his charisma made him a wrestling icon. Dubbed the French Angel, he dominated the ring in the 1940s. Despite his imposing looks, he was a soft-spoken intellectual who spoke 14 languages and wrote poetry. His death in 1954 ended his career, but many believe his image inspired the design of Shrek, making his legacy larger than life, literally. Chang and Eng Bunker weren't just a sideshow act, they were a medical marvel. Conjoined at the chest, they toured with P.T. Barnum before settling in North Carolina, where they married 2 sisters and fathered 21 children. Though doctors offered to separate them, they refused, living a full life bound together. In 1874, Chang fell ill and died in his sleep. Eng woke to find his twin lifeless beside him. Hours later, he too was gone, proving their bond was more than just physical. Born without arms or legs, Prince Randian moved with the grace of a snake, rolling his own cigarettes using only his lips. His sheer independence stunned audiences. He could write, paint, and even shave himself. A longtime performer with Barnum and Bailey, he also appeared in Freaks, 1932, his deep voice and eerie presence unforgettable. He performed until his death in 1934, proving that physical limitations meant nothing in the face of sheer determination. Alice Doherty was born covered in golden fur, her face framed by a soft mane due to a rare condition called hypertrichosis. Dubbed the Minnesota Woolly Girl, she was put on display at a young age, touring across the US. Unlike many circus performers, Alice was never forced into the life. Her parents managed her career, ensuring she was treated well. In the early 1900s, she retired, disappearing from the public eye. Unlike her showbiz peers, she lived a quiet, scandal-free life until her death in 1933. Born with 2 sets of legs due to a rare condition, Myrtle Corbin could move her smaller inner limbs, but never walked on them. At 13, she joined the sideshow circuit, captivating audiences with her rare physique. Unlike many so-called freaks, she was treated with dignity, earning a fortune before retiring young. She married, had 5 children, and lived a surprisingly normal life. Though she left the circus behind, her story endures as one of the most fascinating medical marvels in history. Grady Stiles was born with ectrodactyly, giving him claw-like hands and feet. A sideshow star from childhood, he became infamous for his violent temper rather than his deformity. Abusive and controlling, he once shot and killed his daughter's fiancé in cold blood. Yet his condition spared him prison time. Years later, his own family had enough. In 1992, a hitman was hired to kill him, ending his reign of terror. His story is less about spectacle and more about the dark side of the freak show world. Isaac Sprague's life was a mystery even to doctors. Once a healthy child, he began rapidly losing weight as a teen, eventually weighing just 43 pounds as an adult. Despite his frailty, he turned his skeletal frame into a career, joining P.T. Barnum's circus. Though famous, his health declined, and he struggled financially in later years. He died in poverty in 1887, a tragic end for a man who spent his life being marveled at but never truly understood. Born conjoined at the hip, Daisy and Violet Hilton were raised as property, not people. Exploited by guardians who forced them to perform, they eventually won their freedom and became vaudeville stars. They even starred in Freaks, 1932, and later worked odd jobs when their fame faded. Tragically, they died alone in 1969, unable to escape their tragic bond. Their story, a mix of triumph and heartbreak, remains one of the most compelling in circus history. Mirandajo shocked the world by impaling himself with swords without bleeding or pain. Doctors performed X-rays, confirming no trickery, yet his body remained unharmed. Some believed he possessed supernatural abilities, while skeptics searched for a scientific explanation. But his own limits caught up with him. In 1948, he swallowed a needle to prove his invincibility. Days later, he collapsed and died from internal injuries, leaving behind a mystery that science still can't fully explain. Bill Dirks was born with frontonasal dysplasia, leaving him with deep facial clefts that gave the illusion of two noses and a third lifeless eye. A shy man, he found a home in the circus, where he became a star. To enhance his act, showmen painted a fake third eye on his forehead. Though his appearance made him famous, he was known as a kind, soft-spoken man who found love within the sideshow world. He passed away in 1968, remembered as much for his heart as his face. At 8 feet 3 inches, Edouard Beaupré was a true giant. Strong enough to lift horses and wrestle the best, he stunned audiences with his raw power. Sadly, his immense size came at a cost. His health deteriorated rapidly. He died at just 23 years old from tuberculosis, but his body was mummified and put on display for decades. Only in the 1980s was he finally laid to rest, closing a strange and tragic chapter in circus history. Born without legs, Jeannie Tomini turned her condition into a career, performing acrobatics and stunts that defied expectations. But her story became legendary when she married Al Tomini, an 8-foot-tall giant, a true love story of opposites. Together, they ran their own sideshow, proving that success in the circus didn't just come from spectacle, it came from resilience. Jeannie lived to 82, becoming an advocate for performers and a reminder that strength isn't measured in height. With small heads and childlike features due to microcephaly, Pip and Flip became famous as the twins of Yucatan. Promoted as mysterious jungle creatures, they were actually just two sisters with a genetic condition. Their biggest moment came in Freaks, 1932, where their eerie presence added to the film's unsettling atmosphere. Though they lived in a world of exploitation, they found comfort in each other, proving that even in the circus, family was everything. Grace McDaniels was born with Sturge-Weber syndrome, a rare condition that caused severe facial deformities. Though her appearance was shocking, she was known for her kindness and dignity. Unlike many freak show performers, she was respected and even crowned the world's ugliest woman. She made a fortune in sideshows, ensuring a comfortable life for herself and her son. She died in 1958, proving that inner strength could shine even in a world that thrived on spectacle. Standing at just 3 feet 4 inches, Charles Stratton was P.T. Barnum's biggest star. Literally. Discovered at age 5, he was transformed into General Tom Thumb, dazzling audiences with song, dance, and impersonations. He met Queen Victoria, dined with royalty, and even had a lavish wedding that became national news. Though he was a showman, he lived a dignified life. Proving small stature didn't mean small ambition. He died at 45, forever remembered as the original superstar of the circus. Born with an extra leg and foot due to a parasitic twin, Frank Lentini turned what could have been a curse into a career. He could kick a football with his third leg, making him a sensation in the sideshow world. Rather than hiding, he embraced his uniqueness, earning fame with Ringling Brothers and even having a family. He often joked, "I'm the only man with 3 legs who doesn't need 3 shoes." He performed for over 40 years, proving that confidence makes all the difference. Covered in thick hair due to hypertrichosis, Fedor Jeftichou was marketed as a wild man, raised by wolves. In reality, he was well-mannered and fluent in several languages. P.T. Barnum made him a star, dressing him in furs and having him growl on command. Though exploited, he embraced his fame, touring Europe and America. He died young, at 35, but his face remains one of the most recognizable in freak show history. Born into slavery in 1851, conjoined twins Millie and Christine McCoy were exhibited as the two-headed nightingale. Unlike many freak show performers, they were highly educated, fluent in 5 languages, and talented musicians. They turned their fame into fortune, buying back their freedom and performing on their own terms. When one died in 1912, the other passed just hours later, proving their connection was more than just physical. It was unbreakable. Lucia Zarate holds the record for the smallest fully developed woman in history, standing at just 20 inches tall and weighing under 5 pounds due to primordial dwarfism. Despite her tiny frame, she was full of life, performing across the US and Europe. Audiences adored her, but the harsh reality of the circus life caught up with her. In 1890, stranded in a freezing train during a tour, she succumbed to hypothermia, ending one of the most extraordinary careers in freak show history. Marketed as a missing link between humans and apes, Zip the Pinhead had microcephaly, giving him a small, pointed head. P.T. Barnum turned him into a sensation, having him grunt and act wild for audiences. But in reality, Zip was highly intelligent and could hold conversations fluently. He performed for over 60 years, becoming one of the most recognizable figures in freak show history. Despite the exploitation, he died wealthy and beloved, a true showbiz survivor. Edward Mordake's story is one of horror and mystery. A nobleman with a second face on the back of his head, he claimed it whispered terrible things to him at night, driving him mad. Desperate for relief, he begged doctors to remove it, but no one dared. Unable to escape his torment, he took his own life in his 20s. While modern historians suspect his tale is a hoax, the legend of the man cursed with an evil second face continues to haunt the imagination. Pasquale Pignon's eerie second face made him a sideshow legend. A large tumor atop his head was sculpted into a second face, complete with fake eyes and a painted mouth, making him look like a man with 2 heads. Promoted as the Mexican two-headed wonder, he toured with circuses, captivating crowds. But when the spectacle ended, so did the illusion. A doctor later removed the growth, and Pignon quietly returned to railroad work in Texas, leaving behind one of the strangest stories in freak show history. Aloysia Wagner, known as Violetta, was born without arms or legs, Yet she turned her body into a spectacle of grace and resilience. Unlike many sideshow performers, she wasn't portrayed as a freak, but as a living Venus, enchanting audiences with her elegance. She could write, sew, and even comb her hair, using only her shoulders and mouth. Her beauty and poise made her one of the most respected circus attractions, proving that strength wasn't about limbs, it was about spirit.